All right, hey everybody, we're back in the car on the Brotherly Love South Africa road trip. Yesterday, we asked you what topics you want to hear us talk about, what kind of questions you have. So, thanks everybody who submitted stuff in.
Thank you.
Our first topic we're going to kick off. Somebody asked us to talk about like fragile and performative masculinity. I think a really important place for us to start there is like let's all get on the same page about terminology and what that means. So, Johnny, why don't you kind of kick us off and let's set the table here.
Gladly. Okay, so fragile masculinity refers to when your identity as a man is fragile, it is easily shaken, right? So if you feel insecure about your masculinity, your manhood, you feel that it's something that can be taken from you, then that is fragile masculinity. When someone has fragile masculinity, which is it's impossible for someone to take away your masculinity, but this is a common mindset that a lot of men have under a patriarchal value system. So when your masculinity is fragile, then it leads to you performing masculinity or compensating for something, compensatory or performative masculinity. And that's, think of any action or behavior or signal that a man could take in order to try to demonstrate for others that he fits into the appropriate role of manhood as it's socially defined, like as in that social context. So think about like guys who drive super big trucks and have like truck nuts and lift their trucks, and because they like really want everyone to see, look, I'm a big man, I drive a big truck. Or like dudes that what is another example? Like ICE agents, right? Anyone that goes out of their way to try to have violent, domineering control over others because they feel out of control or insecure with their manhood, they're going to pick a role that allows them to have control and have power, which is the patriarchal script. A real man domineers over others, right? Dominates, is able to accomplish his will through physical violence.
I think as you were talking about that, you hit on something that I think about a lot in the world of masculinity. I think is really important, which is like the way it's been constructed, this world in which you can have such a thing as fragile masculinity is a world in which you are not in control of your masculinity
Yeah,
and you define it externally.
right.
It's my power over others. It's my relational power to other people. It's the way I've extracted resources from the world and from communities. But like the mindset shift to masculinity being this external relationship to the internal one, that to me, like gets rid of so many of the problems of things like fragile masculinity
Yeah.
because it's all about how do I feel within my masculinity? What is
Yes.
my relationship to it? What does it mean to me?
Yeah. So fragile masculinity is like, I can't wear pink. What are people going to say? Or like, I can't dance too expressively, right? Because if I dance at this like bar, then people are going to think that I'm zesty or sus, or that I, like men don't dance, or oh, God forbid I talk too much with my hands or accidentally have a limp wrist, right? Because what's that going to say about me? That's fragile masculinity. And then compensatory masculinity would also be like, okay, I'm painting my nails, but because I've painted my nails, I'm also going to make sure that I'm like really big and jacked, or like in what ways can I compensate for the ways that I am less masculine, or that I defy masculine stereotypes. And another example of both fragile masculinity and performative or compensatory masculinity is the concept of aggrieved entitlement, where men feel that we are entitled to or deserving of respect just because of our gender identity.
Mhm.
And what that ends up leading to is if a man approaches a woman at a bar, or like flirts with or hits on a woman or something, and she's like not interested, and then he flips the switch and goes, oh well, fuck you anyway, I didn't even like you, you're fat, or something, right? Like that is a common experience for women, where like a man who supposedly has interest in you or is complimenting you or whatever, if you reject his advances, just not interested, he then gets angry or aggressive or insulting. That is because his masculinity is fragile, and then he needs to compensate for the feeling of rejection, the ego wound, and be like, oh, I didn't care anyway, right?
The
So
bringing up commensurate masculinity is interesting because in the world of sports, and I know we're going to talk about that in another video. We had some folks ask about masculinity in sports. There's this concept called jock insurance, right? Which is because you are a successful athlete, because you're built, you play to the masculine role of being strong, big, successful. You've got big contract and money. You now have the license to be more feminine. You can paint your nails. You can cry when you win the Super Bowl. You can do all these things. And in this way, where yes, we're seeing some of these positive performances from these individuals, there's this underlying way that they're able to do it because they've done this
yeah,
compensatory stuff already.
like athletes that have really expressive like style, like Dennis Rodman or something. Like Dennis Rodman's like a kind of queer icon in some ways too, but like
It's
other,
even Travis Kelsey crying
yeah,
when he wins the Super Bowl.
yeah,
That's an
exactly,
example
right. So
of it.
that's an example. Yeah, jock insurance, where I get to do this. I have agency in doing this. So when we think about this concept, we can think about how sad it is that there are so many men who don't fall into the traditional or stereotypical boxes of patriarchal masculinity that don't have their jock insurance. Guys that are not interested in sports, guys that aren't like big muscular or whatever, and have no interest in becoming or can't. And so they like no longer have access maybe to the same level of acceptance for their expressiveness because they can't back it up
Right.
with poor masculinity or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So, which is really sad. I think most men fall into that. Like most men and boys fall into that category of like, hey, I'm not going to become a professional athlete, so I feel too scared to pursue my genuine interests or paint my nails or do whatever it is. We mentioned nail painting a lot of times, but like, it could be as simple as like being more artistic or drawing or just not. I don't care about fantasy football, but I feel compelled to do so
Right.
to demonstrate to
Yeah.
my peers and to society that I am doing what guys do
Yeah.
in America, which is fantasy football.
Yeah. And the important part of this for this conversation too is to say this is not about saying you have to wear pink, you have to paint your nails, you have to not play or play fantasy football. It's about making that choice from a place of saying, I'm choosing not to do this because I don't want to, or I'm
Yeah,
doing this because I want to. I love the way pink looks on me. I want to wear it. Or
right.
I actually don't like the color pink. I don't want to wear it. But it's your choice, not I'm doing it because of the
I'm
expectations of what
scared
other
to.
people think. I'm afraid
Yeah,
for another reason.
yeah.
Um,
That is the most sincere, grounded, authentic place we can come from when after doing men's work and trying to find self esteem and find our own sense of manhood is like I am going to pursue what I'm interested in and what I want to, rather than I'm going to avoid something that'll cause me shame. Right. So that those are the two
yeah.
distinctions. Right. If I'm trying to avoid shame. So I'm going to build myself up into this image of a man that I hope will be accepted. That's an avoidance based, like
Mhm.
insecure, fragile masculinity. I don't have a strong sense of self, right? But if I'm pursuing, like, even if it's the same things, I love fantasy football. I love playing sports. I love doing this. But that's coming from a place of authenticity, not like I better do this because men are supposed to like sports. That's the distinction.
And I do love playing fantasy football. But I do, as it relates to something, there's a quote I think about a lot, and I discovered it in a book by our friend Mark Grayson called "Getting Naked." And it's not his quote; it's from one of the Stoics. I forget who, but I have carried it with me ever since I read it. And the quote is, I'm going to butcher it, but it's I am a man, which means which means nothing human is foreign to me. And I think about that all the time. Like, I am never going to close myself off to an experience because of my gender identity. Like, I am a human being and I get to experience the full spectrum of my humanity and the human experience. Why would I ever write something off because of an assumption, because of the way I think someone might make me feel about it, or how I might feel, how other people think about it? Like, no, I get to try this. I am alive, and to make the most of my life, I get to try everything
Beautifully said, brother. Love that.
else.
Yeah.